Ironically, one of my biggest coaching influences is a golf coach, and his name is Scott Fawcett. He's the founder of Decade Golf, and he's helped Division One teams win national championships and several players win PGA Tour events with his logical, decision-based strategic thinking. And on today's clip from a previous podcast episode, we talk about why it's important not to abandon optimal strategy and what you should do if you leave the court feeling like you should have won. I hope you enjoy.
But this is what I try to tell people. Let's just to make math easy, if you've got a 76 scoring average, or 72 scoring average, so 36 on each side, and you turn at 39, your expected score is no longer 72. You're 3 over that. Let's don't turn that 75 into a 77. That's really, it's why the college teams that I work with have just been crushing the national championships lately, because once you get this idea through your head, and again, with 5 players playing, almost by definition, someone's going to play bad that day. We can't have 2 people play bad that day, and we certainly can't have 2 people. I hate using the word quit because it's kind of an aggressive, derogatory word. But if you start trying to play more aggressively because you're down, or you change that second serve strategy, whatever it was, or you're like, I really need a winner here, so you try to just buzz the net a little bit more. You've abandoned strategy. You've abandoned proper strategy, which I do believe is a form of quitting. And again, that gets back to like when you start getting mad again. I played competitive tennis through about 7th grade. I was a racket slammer. I was a hothead on the golf course too. It's funny, actually working with a new therapist now. And she's like, when's the first time you remember really getting mad? I was like, well, golf, I've always been a hothead. And then I was like, damn it, I was in tennis too. Like I don't accept not doing things perfectly very well. And it is just interesting. Once you start getting mad, that's quitting. You have now quit your mental strategy because you don't start off a game. I'm going to be as mad as possible out here, and that's definitely how I'm going to play optimal. I'm sure there are great tennis players, McEnroe or whoever the modern equivalent that is, but I don't believe those people let it impact their downstream play. Tiger got as mad as anyone, but then he truly left it behind once it was time to get to the next shot. And that's, again, it's a really difficult thing to do well. So I suggest trying to work on meditation and other things to avoid getting mad in the first place, or not avoid, but recognize it before it, spirals out of control. But any of those are forms of quitting, in my opinion. And that's what the kid was basically doing, yelling to his coach, I'm about to quit on you because I'm about to go make a double from trying to force something when clearly I don't have my A game today. Like, just tap the brakes, man.
I know it's a little harsh, but abandoning proper strategy is a form of quitting. It's a little aggressive, but I really like that because it helps me stay solid. So let's say you walk out in a match and you're down 1-4 right away. I've made videos on this, but if you're losing, it's because you're missing. So I'm not saying that you should never make an adjustment strategically. Of course you should, but that adjustment is usually going to be to get more conservative with your targets, bigger targets, higher over the net, slower ball, more topspin. Very rarely is it going to be to step on the gas and get more aggressive and try to hit a bunch of winners to get it back. Unfortunately, that's where most people go when they're down, is they start forcing the issue, which ultimately will just make you lose faster. The second thing he said that I love was don't turn a 75 into a 77. So he was kind of saying if you make the turn in golf and you're above your normal expected score, you're probably not going to shoot your normal score on that day. It's going to be a little higher, but let's mitigate how bad that round is going to be. And so again, you might show up and you have your B or your C game. That's okay. Let's just stay in that lane for the day. Let's not try to go above what we're capable of. Play simple and solid. And a lot of days, your B and C game is enough to win. Remember, you just have to be better than one tennis player in the world on that given day, and it's your opponent. And they are probably not playing their A game as well. So if you step out with your B game, stay within yourself, play simple, and I'll bet you that'll take you very far.
Yeah, so Tiger, he won in the late 90s, but he wasn't dominant in the late 90s. He won a couple times a year. He's known for that 13-shot win from the Masters from 1997. But after that, he really, again, won a couple times a year, but it wasn't like he was. And the golfers, every single round we play, because we're psychopaths, probably like tennis players are also. I think that anyone who gravitates towards an individual sport tends to be somewhere on the type A personality, and maybe tennis players even more because you're also fit, whereas golfers can be fat and lazy. Tiger, we finish every round of golf and think we should have shot lower. And I think Tiger was having those exact same feelings through the late 90s. And so my understanding is he basically started writing down at the end of each round, well, why do I feel that way? Which shot specifically? And after doing it for, again, I don't know if it was a year or more, but after doing it for a while, I believe he just sat down and said, okay, what are the common mistakes? And for him, he came up with bogeys on par fives, double bogeys, three putts, blown easy saves, and bogey with wedge or less, 9 iron or less, rather, from inside 150 yards. And it's just crazy because what I try to tell people is if you feel like you should have shot lower when you played, which again, 100% of people do, and it's not one of those five mistakes, you're probably kidding yourself. I mean, and there really is, it sounds like a joke, but it's like, if you think you should have shot lower every time you play, there's only one of the two things that's possible. You're not as good as you think you are, or you made mental and strategic mistakes. And so what's crazy is we all just go work on the physical aspect of the game, and we just leave that strategic and mental piece. Again, we read sports psychology books and whatever, but it's not like we really dwell on it. And Tiger, being the GOAT, he really dwelled on it. And it's crazy because in the middle of the 99 season, you can see this shift overnight. So he was averaging on bogeys inside 150, basically with 9 iron or less. He was averaging 2.3 per round through the late 90s, which is a huge percentage of your actual opportunities from an inside 150. And literally almost overnight, he went from 2.3 to 1.3. He got a full shot better just by not making bogey inside 150. And I do think that he probably just at some point was like, I'm just going to screw around and try to not do that for a tournament. And he won 8 of his last 9 starts. Again, you can just literally see the data. It stopped overnight because people like to be cynical and be like, well, maybe something finally clicked in his swing. Like, not overnight. That's just not how it works. You don't get that much materially better. That had to be a mental and strategic shift.
So what can we take from this clip? Well, if you leave the court feeling like you should have won the match, he says there's one of two things that's happened. Number one, you're not as good as you think you are, which, by the way, that's me, you, anyone who has ever played tennis. We always view ourselves in the top 10% of our performances. Most of us don't feel like what we are is our average or even those bad days. We see what we're capable of, and that's who we think we are as a player, which really isn't true. And what that does is it adds a lot of expectations. So when you step on the court, inevitably you get frustrated, you walk off, and you feel like you should have won the match. The second reason why you might feel like you should have won a match that you just lost is you made strategic mistakes. And he said something that I love, which is write down the situations that you feel like should have gone your way or should have gone differently. So maybe you had some no ads or some breakpoint opportunities that you didn't capitalize. Write down in detail what happened. Did you hit short? Did you play passive? Did you make unforced errors, which, spoiler alert, is probably what happened. But write those situations down so you can kind of figure out what mistakes you're making strategically, and then you can fix that moving forward. And the last thing that he said, which I love, which definitely translates to tennis, is he said it's a lot easier to teach a golfer to not make a bogey than it is to make a birdie. And the same thing applies to errors and winners. I can teach a 3-0 today to reduce several errors just by target, shot selection, hitting a little slower. That is actually pretty easy if you can commit to the concept. It's very difficult to get a 3-0 to start hitting winners right off the bat. In fact, it's difficult to get a 4-5, or when I was at Duke, a D1 All-American to hit more winners. So your first order of business, if you want to improve, is learn how to start reducing the errors, mainly with strategic thinking. If you enjoyed these clips from Scott, make sure you check out the podcast episode. I'll put that in the description for the video. And make sure you listen to all the episodes from Baseline Intelligence. I've learned so much from the players and the coaches, and I hope you will as well.